It's been now 2 months since October 7th. I said this earlier, but the death toll is now around 17,000 in Gaza. And, we have these kind of statements made by Blinken and the White House about how Israel is working towards efforts to minimize civilian casualties, and there is zero
Blinken,
evidence
the guy
to that
who was
effect.
going around the Middle East asking, hey, will you take these Gazans?
Right. But essentially, just conceding the point that the ethnic cleansing is going to happen.
Running errands for an ethnic cleansing using American, taxpayer money. Thanks, Blinken.
And the idea that that is just a foregone conclusion should be deeply troubling to anybody that has a conscience. But apparently, the White House seemingly is ideologically committed to supporting Israel no matter what. And that's Blinken and Biden together. There has been a shift in tone, but I feel that that's...
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, right. If it's indicative of how things are changing behind the scenes, that's good, but it's still not enough.
No.
And, hopefully Netanyahu is facing some semblance of pressure from the Americans. Again, not enough, but hopefully some semblance of it. The international community, every country that, isn't basically the US, Germany, the UK, is raising alarm bells and is outraged. You can see that reflective in the votes from a few weeks ago in the United Nations, how isolated America is on this. And that I would hope is at least going to have some effect. But what Netanyahu also has to deal with, and he doesn't care about the Palestinians, that's clear. He's enthusiastically mass murdering them at this point. So the lawn mowing is that's already a given at this point. All he cares about is the domestic pressure that he's going to be facing, because from the perspective of the hostages' families, the carpet bombing of the place where the hostages have been taken doesn't maybe seem like the best idea if your primary concern is, and for the families, that's their primary concern, is the safety of their family members. Now, Netanyahu doesn't care. That's becoming abundantly clear at this point. The primary objective is annihilating as many people in Gaza as humanly possible. Retribution and ethnic cleansing is first, and the safety of the Israeli hostages is secondary. And this audio leaked here. It was published in part on the Israeli news site Ynet, and there are subtitles here which I will read for the podcast audience. This was leaked audio of a meeting between the freed Israeli hostages and Netanyahu, and you'll hear a woman here. She was abducted and freed along with her children, but her husband remains in captivity. And this is her in a meeting with Netanyahu, basically ripping into him. You're putting politics over returning the hostages. And you think the men are strong? My husband was hitting himself every day, punching his own face until he would bleed, because it was unbearable for him. And now he's alone. And God knows in what conditions. And all you're thinking about is collapsing Hamas. Fucking give them back whoever they want. And bring everybody back. The women, the men. I was diapering elderly women. I watched R.A. Zalmanovich die next to me, and this is what you have to say? That's what you want to collapse Hamas's rule? That you want to collapse Hamas's rule? That you want to show them who has bigger balls? No one's life is more important than another. All right, pause it for a sec, sorry. No one of us there is worthy, this is just some odd grammar, of less attention than any resident in Israel. Okay, keep going. It's illogical that Hamas comes before us. You will bring everybody back, and not next month. they won't wait another 50 days. They won't wait until because you claim they're strong enough or that you have enough intel. You have no intel.
Yeah.
Look how we were bombed. It's a fact that no one knew anything about our whereabouts. Respect, people are saying to her. So, I mean, that's on point, and that's clear there.
This needs to be echoed by leaders outside of Israel, because within Israel there's still a huge. This is poll results hawkish. 57% of Israeli Jews, they believe that IDF was using too little firepower. 36 says was using just amount. So just 1.8 say it is using too much. So let's not overstate the degree to which Bibi is not supported with regards to his bombing of Gaza. The only way that this sort of ember, and Ilan Pappy said this when he was here, the only way those embers of righteousness really become flames is if they're blown on from outside of the society. And that's why what Biden and Blinken and even Bernie Sanders, which I appreciate the votes, but you got to stop undermining the international effort toward a ceasefire.
Yep.
You just can't. No one's going to hear a single thing you're saying until you stop undermining what the international left is saying. We need to help these people because like this is an urgent, like you could see death squads toward people who are speaking out against this war with the degree to which there's I think a pro war hysteria, but continue.
Yeah, I mean, and that is, I think, we saw the protests within Israel in support of the hostages and their families who are echoing many of these sentiments, obviously, seeing increasingly that this is Netanyahu feeling like this is an existential threat to his continued rule over Israel, where he needs to continue to play up the threat so that the war can continue, so that he can have his wartime government, so that he can delay the investigations into him, which, it came out a few days ago that his lawyer had successfully gotten the number of hearings down about his corruption charges from 3 times a week to 2 because he is so wrapped up in this war in Gaza. Like, this is in the same way that getting elected for Trump here in the United States is existential for his survival, and he feels that the only way he's going to stay out of prison is to become president. Netanyahu feels something quite similar in Israel as it relates to the continued crimes of genocide in Gaza. And I say that because I wanted to read this account in The Independent from a doctor. And content warning, you will hear things that are disturbing, but this is the kind of stuff that needs to be repeated so people really understand what's happening. A badly burned toddler screaming for the mother he doesn't know is dead, and screaming because doctors do not have enough painkillers to relieve his suffering. An 8-year-old boy whose brain is exposed as bombing damaged parts of his skull. A teenage girl, her eyes surgically removed because every bone in her face is smashed. A 3-year-old double amputee whose severed limbs are laid out in the pink box beside him. And in the background is the stench of rotting flesh as maggots creep out of untreated wounds. This is the daily reality at the European hospital inside the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis, as described by veteran British war surgeon Tom Potakar, who works for the International Committee of the Red Cross. In recent days, Israeli forces have started to storm Khan Yunis, the largest city in southern Gaza, launching what is believed to be the biggest ground assault since a fragile 7-day truce collapsed last week. Inside the European hospital, one of the main medical centers servicing the city and surrounding areas, medics struggle to treat the relentless stream of wounded, Dr. Potakar says, and nearly half of them are children. I've lost count of the number of children we have treated who have horrific injuries, burns, amputations, who've lost their whole family, Dr. Potakar tells The Independent from inside the hospital compound, which, like other medics, he has not left for 5 weeks. Palestinian and international medics are sleeping on the floor of the nursing quarters, living off packets of noodles and working 14-hour shifts, he explains. One night, Dr. Potakar says he was nearly killed by shrapnel, which came through a window. Some medics, including nursing staff and surgeons like Dr. Potakar worked with, have been killed. That Dr. Potakar worked with have been killed alongside dozens of members of their family. At least one of the 100 ICRC staff working in Gaza has also been killed. Recently, Dr. Potokar was treating burn patients in an intensive care unit who had fled north of the country and whose wounds were septic, as the dressing had not been changed for days. On the bed next to Burns' patient was a 3-year-old boy. He had 2 above-knee amputations done the night before the airstrike. I found out afterwards that his father had also had an amputation, and the rest of the family didn't make it, Dr. Potokar says. This is not a one-off event. The point here is that, again, I said this the other day, the violence is not just reflective in the death totals. The terrorist attack in Israel that killed around 1,200 Israelis, you know, the continued violence from that is the taking of the hostages and the trauma that results from that. But the continued violence in Gaza extends far beyond the death totals to tens of thousands maimed in that same way, and many who will die in hospitals because of the lack of care, and the violence of displacement and the violence of becoming homeless. So we're talking about an unprecedented scale of destruction and violence at this point. And the brutality of that and the international recognition of that, hopefully, I've got to pray, will eventually, get to Netanyahu. But it's seemingly the domestic stuff, and that is going to be the thing. Like, that's the poker in his ass.
The first firewall to crack is liberal Zionists domestically who need to wake up and put on big boy pants and realize that actually there is a contradiction between going after Hamas and saving the hostages. Blinken tweeted out on October 8th, we support Turkey's efforts for a ceasefire and so we can start getting rid of hostages. Israel has plenty of Palestinians caged. They had plenty before October 7th. They have even more sense that they can start using to trade for hostages. They don't want to because they said, well, actually, we're more concerned about terrorism. We're more concerned about, and the truth is, you can give all the Palestinians, free all of them from the prisons, and the only thing that you need to do to stop on October 7th from happening again is guard the concentration camp and stop guarding the settlers in occupied territories. And so like that, you don't care about hostages thing. That's projection. That's Bibi Netanyahu. And we have this guy here who's a former U.S. intelligence analyst. I know we got to go, but former U.S. intelligence analyst. Crap.
I have it.
Oh, you have? Okay. Yeah, it's a long clip, but I think we have the point here. And the Zionist right is plenty honest about the contradiction between.
It's not that long?
No, it's just the time code.
Okay, it's just the time code. I mean, let's play it then. Let's play it.
That's the point. When we declared war, they declared war a long time ago. We just caught up with them. When we declared war, the first thing that the government should have done was declare a state of national emergency and told all of the hostage families, you will keep your mouths shut or we will shut them for you. You will not interfere in our management of this war. You will not be used by the international community or by our own leftists who managed the Shalit deal.
Yeah, pause it now. That's
as a
enough.
weapon against us.
You, person who has somebody being held hostage, won't be used. Like, no, they're not. They're trying to work toward their own ends.
Yep. Yeah, no, you will not get in the way of us using your trauma and pain for our own expansionist aims. Yep. Sounds a little similar to what the Israeli government has been doing for 75 years with Jewish trauma and pain more broadly.
And that's Jonathan Pollard, who is a U.S. citizen and a former Israeli spy.
Yep. Jailed for spying for Israel.